Right, good morning everyone. Welcome to this episode of the How To Academy Small Business Masterclasses with the Great British Entrepreneur Awards and Salesforce. These interactive masterclasses are specifically aimed at small businesses and will arm you with actionable steps that you can take within your business to improve your processes, your plans, and your outcomes. Today, I am delighted to say that we're joined by Daniel Priestley, a man that I've heard speak on several occasions. Someone who always provides incredible insights and advice. So he's going to be talking today about how to enroll people into your vision and lead fast growth companies. If you do have any questions for Daniel, then please leave them in the Q&A function at the bottom of your screens, and we'll put them to Daniel towards the end of the session. But other than that, I don't want to step on Daniel's toes too much in terms of the content. So I will pass over to you, Daniel.
Thank you very much. Very good. Just want to check in. Is it possible that I can be on the main speaker view? Because at the moment it's pinned to you.
Yeah, I'll get that sorted for you. Yeah, there you go.
Great. Thank you very much. Okay, welcome. So today we're going to talk about pitching. We're going to talk about crafting a powerful pitch and how that fits within the role of leading an organization. Just a little bit of background. I'm an entrepreneur pretty much from the very beginning of my career. I started a business at 18 and then I started a company at 21. It scaled up to about an $11 million a year business within about 3 or 4 years. So it's a fast growth company. Since then, I've launched several businesses, bought and sold companies. Today I run a group of companies. We've got 7 companies in the group, offices in London, Sydney and Toronto. And one of the companies we've just spun out is a fast growth technology company, growing at between 5 and 20% per month. Software business, SaaS business. We've raised money on several of these businesses, and everything really involves pitching. So it's a topic that is very much close to my heart. What I would like to do as well is just get you to put any of your pitching related questions into the chat. I would love for you to get as much value from this session as possible. So if you've come into this session with a particular question, please pop it into the chat. Also, if you can just let me know where it is you're joining me from, where are you in the world, how are you feeling? That would be really good so that I can get a bit of a proof of life that there are actually people hearing me on this call. Normally a Zoom chat, I can see you. But unfortunately, it's just me talking to myself unless I get something in the chat that says, yep, I can hear you. And I'm joining you from London, Lisbon, or Lyon, Boston, Brisbane, Bangalore, wherever it is that you are. So thank you very much, Kate. Thanks, John. Thanks, Megan. Love that. Appreciate that. Okay, great. All right. So here's what we'll do. Let me share my screen, and we will get straight into some ideas here on pitching. So if you want to follow me on social media, feel free to add me along on any of your socials. What I'll just talk about just first up is the first thing I just want to talk about is entrepreneurship in general. So in the last 2 years, obviously huge amounts of disruption. I honestly believe disruption is a really, really good thing for entrepreneurs. Essentially, when there's no disruption, large corporates and hugely funded private equity companies and those sorts of organizations end up collecting up all the cookies into their cookie jar. Big companies, when they're given time, will move into all sorts of opportunities that they don't really belong in, but they will definitely do it because they're looking for ways to grow. Corporates are very slow to innovate. They're slow to make decisions. So if there's no disruption, they have enough time that they need in order to make great decisions and put big resources behind their decisions, which actually kind of accumulates all the cookies into one cookie jar. And until such time as disruption comes along, they get stronger and stronger and stronger. So when disruption comes along, it just breaks that cookie jar right open, and there's just opportunities everywhere. And if we look at the world that we're living in at the moment, there's more money available than ever before. The UK government, for example, has pumped in 350 billion in response to COVID. Most of that went into the middle. In 2008, 2009, they pumped all of that kind of liquidity into the banking sector, but they've gone and kind of pumped it straight into small businesses. So there's huge amounts of money in the small business economy. There's huge amounts of money in angel investors' pockets, huge amounts of money in people's budgets because they haven't spent money on other things in the last 2 years. So there's a lot of money around. Next thing is there's a lot of talent around, right? So you can access talent from all over the world now. It used to be that people had to work in offices and they had to be within 10 miles of the office. Now you could have your team in the Ukraine, in Pakistan, in Philippines, in Los Angeles, in New York, in London. So you could actually have an amazing talent pool from anywhere in the world. You can find the right person who's the perfect person to grow your business and work with you. And it doesn't really matter anymore. So long as you can get on a Zoom call a couple of times a week, be on a Slack channel, it can all work just nicely. The markets available are bigger than ever. So we've never had more access to huge markets. Small businesses can sell globally. So much software enables pretty much every problem has been solved for small businesses to be selling into global markets. And then problems. We have huge problems. Entrepreneurs succeed when they can talk about a problem and when they can solve a problem at scale. So we now are rethinking the way that we live and work. We're rethinking the way that we educate, entertain. We're rethinking all supply chains. We're rethinking, pretty much every single issue, the way that we live. We're open to new solutions and new ideas around how that might work. And also we have huge social problems, humanitarian problems, environmental problems. All of those are opportunities for entrepreneurs. I believe that one of the best places you can go as an entrepreneur, if you're looking for an opportunity, is the United Nations Global Goals. There's 17 huge problems on the planet that need solving. Each one of them has multi-billion-dollar budgets available for solving them. So it's a great time to be an entrepreneur. Money, talent, markets, and problems at a scale that has never been seen. And what are we seeing? Sure enough, we're seeing people building, many people are building the businesses of their dreams now. So it's almost a daily occurrence. I come across someone who's got a highly paid side hustle. I come across someone who's a highly paid consultant and able to live and work from anywhere. I come across people who've got an excellent lifestyle boutique where they've got a team of 3 to 12 people and they're punching well above their weight, doing great things. I'm seeing more and more people building businesses between the 5 and 50 million pound exit space. 5 and 50 million pound exit is a life-changing amount of money for most people. I've had a number of my friends who have sold their companies for 5 to 50 million. Doesn't make the news, doesn't really pop up on anyone's radar, and yet it's a totally life-changing amount of money because they haven't diluted through VC capital or any of those kind of things. They own most of the business. And they can get on with some other amazing things after that as well. So all of this is happening. It's an entrepreneur revolution, you could say, and it's a great time to be an entrepreneur. With that said, it's also got its challenges, right? So we've never had a more noisy marketplace. Every entrepreneur is kind of in competition with every other entrepreneur in the world because of digital technology, because of fast internet access everywhere. If you're coming up with a good idea in London, it's immediately judged against competitors in Sydney and in Los Angeles and Singapore and Bangalore. So all of these, little ideas that might have had their own walled garden for a period of time are now in competition with a very, very noisy marketplace. So we've never had more competition to actually stand out in that noisy marketplace. So we've got to find ways to stand out. And you as the entrepreneur have never been more of a critical role. People judge the business based upon the entrepreneur in many ways. And I want to really encourage you, first up, don't hide behind your brand. Don't hide behind the business. And here's why I say this. If we take the Google logo, for example, and I ask you the question, what color is the blue? What color is the G in Google? What color is that G? Let me know in the chat whether you know whether it's red, green, yellow, or blue. And just pop there if you can, if you in the chat, let me know whether you can guess. Ali says red, John says blue with a question mark. And red, I think, says Megan. So here's the thing, and I actually almost gave it away, but it's blue and it's always been blue. And this is how terrible we are at recognizing logos and company brands. The human brain is not built for logos and companies and abstractions like businesses. We're totally built for recognizing people. So if you look at Cristiano Ronaldo, he has 335 million followers. If you add up all the followers of all the company or club brands in the Premier League, it's 184 million. So it's not, just over half the followers for every single club combined. And Cristiano Ronaldo is just almost double all of the clubs combined. If we look at Richard Branson, 12 million followers versus Virgin, 250,000 followers. Jessica Alba, 19 million followers versus 1 million followers on The Honest Company, 50 million for Elon Musk versus 9 million for Tesla. So what we see here is that people trust a personal brand much more than a company brand. And it's no surprise that Elon Musk has a car company that is worth all other car companies combined. If you were to ask most people on the street, who is the CEO of Ford? They don't know. Who's the CEO of General Motors? They don't know. Who's the CEO of BMW or Porsche? They don't know. Who's the CEO of Tesla? Most people would know. And it's funny because Ford was originally started by a personal brand, Henry Ford. Mr. Porsche started Porsche, right? So personal brands are the things that get companies going, and people trust them. And then company brands are a lot less trusted. Tim Cook is a huge part of the Apple brand now. So he's taken the mantle from Steve Jobs. But it's interesting that Apple is considered to be the most powerful brand in the world, most valuable brand in the world. And yet it's got 6 million followers versus 12 million for Tim Cook. So Tim Cook is twice as followed as Apple. So it's kind of fascinating this because, Apple is a 45-year-old business brand. Tim Cook's only been at the helm for 10 years. He's an introvert. But it absolutely matters. And when you look at the DNA of the Apple brand, a huge part of the following comes from the fact that the CEO and all the major executives get on stage 2 or 3 times a year and talk you through their thinking. So a big part of being a successful entrepreneur is fronting the brand, being the person who's willing to be on the stage, generating demand, generating interest, putting yourself out there for your brand. And when you do put yourself out there, you've got to be putting yourself out there with your perfect pitch. So the reason a pitch is very important is because you're pitching to humans. Humans have brains, and brains have something called a hippocampus. A hippocampus is essentially a filtering mechanism on the brain that stops boring stuff from getting in. So anything that looks like it's boring, anything that looks uninteresting gets completely filtered out. You've all experienced this. If you've walked down a busy street and I stop you at the end of the street and say, describe for me 3 faces or 3 people that you remember, most of you won't be able to describe anyone. Your hippocampus filtered everyone out and turned them into faceless blobs that you just avoided crashing into. But other than that, you don't really remember anyone on the busy street. So that's your hippocampus at work. And when a brain is bombarded constantly with stuff on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook and all over the world, every single day, the hippocampus gets very, very strong. And essentially, we have to be able to cut through the hippocampus with something different, something awesome, and make sure that our pitch lands pretty powerfully. So here's a few things that a pitch is not. A pitch is not this. Tell me, what do you do? Well, I'm a bit all over the place at the moment. I wear multiple hats. I'm doing several things in business improvement space, and some of it's my existing business, and a bit of it's relatively new concept that I'm working on. I'm looking at my options. I've got a side hustle, right? So rule number 1, it's not therapy. So your job is not to tell people whatever's going on in your head. Your job is to give them a great pitch. Number 2, what do you do? Well, I started out selling printing equipment in the 80s, and that led me to an interesting role in research with the PLC in the early 90s. 8 minutes later, we're still at 1992. So a pitch is not your Wikipedia page. It's not your whole history. It's not your entire origin story and backstory. You may cherry pick 1 or 2 things to make a point, but ultimately it's not your Wikipedia page. Tell me what you do. I'm a life coach. I bet you've heard that before. Everyone's a coach these days. I'm actually finding it a bit hard to get clients at the moment. Are you getting many clients? Maybe Brexit's scaring people off. So rule number 3 is you get what you pitch for, and you're always pitching. So when you're describing what it is that you do or don't do, or you're describing your challenges or frustrations, in many ways, you're pitching them into existence. So when you talk to your own team about things are hard, or that where we've got no time, we've got no resources, any of those things that you're talking to yourself, your team, your friends, you're pitching it into existence in many ways. If you look at the idea of someone who's busy and they say, I'm busy, I'm busy, I'm busy, I'm busy, they're pitching into existence busyness, because essentially when someone says, I'm busy, I'm busy, I'm busy, people don't bring them highly valuable, highly important things to do, because they essentially say, well, you're too busy for it. So I'm not going to introduce you to my top contacts. I'm not going to introduce you to that. I'm not going to invite you to that really amazing event, because you tell me you're busy all the time. So I don't want to add more stress to your life. So you essentially end up doing low value tasks, and you end up doing lower and lower value, and you end up busier and busier and busier. Imagine if you change your pitch from I'm busy to I'm hiring. I'm looking for someone to join the team. As soon as you change the pitch from I'm busy to I'm hiring, you start getting a different quality of problem. So you get a better quality problem as soon as you change the pitch. There's no money, there's no money, there's no money. People assume that there's no value that you've got to offer in your business. So as soon as you change the pitch to we're raising capital, then they assume that you must have something of value. So you get what you pitch for, you're always pitching. So the three big rules is it's not therapy. You don't need to share everything going on in your head. It's not your Wikipedia page. You don't have to overshare your history. And it's important to acknowledge that you're always pitching, whether you're talking to your team, whether you're talking to your friends, you're pitching into existence your business. So let's get into pitching. There are three key pitches that you need as a business, as an entrepreneur. One, to gauge a little bit of interest. Two, to engage with people. And three, to inspire some action. We call these the social pitch, the scheduled pitch, and the sales pitch. So let's start with the social pitch. So the purpose of a social pitch is a 30-second pitch. You don't normally know who it is that you're pitching to. You're pitching to maybe an open room. You're pitching to someone you may not know very well. You might be in just a social setting. Someone might say, introduce yourself to the group. These are all what we'd call social pitching or elevator pitching scenarios. This is the pitch that gets the most fame, the elevator pitch. And everyone talks about like, oh, wow, the elevator pitch. Give me your elevator pitch. And a lot of people kind of think this is like a really important pitch that you have to get right. To an extent, it's important, but realistically, no one's going to invest because it's based on a good elevator pitch, or extremely rarely that anything would lead from an elevator pitch other than a good conversation that might lead into booking a time in the diary, having a presentation, and having 3 or 4 more important pitches. So an elevator pitch is really nothing more than a filtering mechanism to see if it's worth having a deeper conversation with people. So how do we do a good elevator pitch? Here's my scripting tool that I really love working on, where in our accelerator program with our entrepreneurs. It's called Name, Same, Claim to Fame, Aim and a Game. Bit of a mouthful, but it should fit within 30 seconds. So your name and your company name. You would shock you how many people do not say, I'm Daniel Priestley, the CEO of Dent Global, or I'm Mark Zuckerberg, I'm the CEO of Facebook. Right. So we've got to make sure that we get our name and our company name straight in there at the beginning, right? So that people remember that. Even if they should know, it's really important to say something like, I know you must connect with a lot of people on a regular basis. I'm Daniel Priestley. I'm the founder and CEO of Dent Global. So you might just recap that. Or if you've recently introduced your name, you'd say, I'm the founder and CEO of Dent Global. So that is your name and your company name. Same is putting yourself in a box. Most people absolutely hate this step. It drives the energy down. It makes you sound completely boring. It makes you feel completely commoditized. It's the last thing you want as an entrepreneur, but it's the first thing that people need when they're receiving any information. They need to know what to label the folder in their brain. So when someone's pitching, people are opening up a little folder in their head, and they're trying to put a name on that folder. So you might say we're a software business, or you might say we're a consulting business, or we do training and development programs for leaders, or we've created a piece of software for the wine industry. So you want to make it as super simple as possible that almost anyone over the age of 12 would know roughly what you're talking about. So it's going to be software, consulting, training. It might be, a business that I'm just trying to think about some of the businesses that I was seeing in the judging, a beauty business, a fashion business. So you want to keep it nice and real simple. We have a drinks business, so something that everyone can understand. So that's the first step. The next one is fame. What makes it different? What makes it special? What makes it unique? And this is where you could talk about any brands you've worked with. You could talk about you could name drop any people that, one of our investors is so-and-so, one of our brand ambassadors is so-and-so, or we've recently signed a contract with, Microsoft. So this is where you can drop something with, some fame behind it, or you could even use your own background. My background is working at Microsoft before I left to start this startup. Would actually be a name drop. We're looking for like a name drop moment. We're looking for like a mentioning of an award. We're the finalist in the Great British Entrepreneur Awards. Anything like that is going to differentiate you. So your name, what are you the same as? And then something that is sexy, stand out, name droppy, that we can hang our hat on. Then we want to talk about aim and a game. So aim, what are we trying to get done in the short term, maybe in the next 90 days? And game is, what is the bigger vision for the business? So I might say that at the moment we're putting together a cohort of 60 entrepreneurs on our Key Person of Influence accelerator. Our big game is to develop entrepreneurs who stand out, scale up, and solve big and meaningful problems in the world. So that would be aim and a game. So essentially, what is the kind of short-term thing that you're working on? What is the bigger vision that you would be happy that you're working towards longer term? So all of this realistically should get into 30 to 40 seconds. If people are not willing to give you 30 to 40 seconds, it's probably a good filtering mechanism in itself. But essentially, most people are happy to hear 30 to 40 seconds that is structured in that way. That will be a good social pitch. At the end of the social pitch, the goal is to pause, just completely stop, and let it land with people and let them speak next, so that you can gauge whether they're actually interested or whether they're just being polite, and whether there's room for another conversation to be had. Any questions about social pitching, please put them into the chat. I'd love to start a conversation. If it's possible, I'm happy to have anyone like unmute and come into the room, but I don't know how to actually do that. I wonder if perhaps you can help me there, John, and we'll go from there. Okay, our next pitch.
We have actually got a question.
Yeah, great. Let's go for it.
Just on that, so it's from an anonymous attendee. So I imagine they probably don't want to unmute and come on.
No worries.
To talk to you. But so they've said on the fame point, would you still use awards as your hook even if you don't win? Is being a finalist enough?
Depends on the stage of business. If you're an early stage startup, then being a finalist in an award is, if you're less than say 2 years old, being a finalist is quite impressive. You're looking for the most impressive thing you could say, and you're not looking for anything that people need to have technical knowledge to understand. A lot of people try and say things like what their product does. Our product is great for lead generation, or our product is a AI-powered SaaS initiative that, develops leaders into epic copywriters. It's like they're trying to kind of be famous for a thing that they do. Fame should actually be like just as simple as a name drop. We have a customer, one of our customers is Google. One of our achievements in the last 6 months was being a finalist in a major entrepreneur award. Anything like that just gets cut through, and you're looking for that little bit of cut through. And then at the end of 30 seconds, if people want to go deeper, they ask questions. If they don't ask questions, you know that you've just filtered them out, which is valuable in itself. So you're looking for the most impressive thing. I hope that's helpful with that one. All right, so next one, let's get into the scheduled pitch. The scheduled pitch is when it's in your diary, you've got time to research the person, and you know who you're going to be talking to. You've probably got 15 minutes to present something. Maybe you've got an hour, and maybe it's just going to be a conversation. But you need to schedule, you need to prepare for every single scheduled pitch that you go into. So here's how I recommend preparing. And we use this little map with our clients called the Capstone Pitch. And the Capstone Pitch is clarity, So name, same, and fame. Just, reminding people what it is that you do. Authority is, why should I listen to you? Where did you get your insights from? Have you been recognized by an external third party? Are you associated with any big brands? Do you have any major results that kind of make you worth listening to? Essentially, elevation of status so that people actually pay attention and listen, or credibility or proof so that people care, because people are listening to so many things that they just won't listen unless you've got elevated status or authority or credibility. So I saw this when I watched people at a live event with Richard Branson. Richard Branson was talking about how he keeps a journal and how he loves pushing his employees in the pool. And people are like freaking out, writing down, oh, keep a journal, push employees in the pool. And like, just because of his elevated status, every single word that comes out of his mouth, people will write it down, they'll act upon it. So this is just human behavior. As much as it should or shouldn't be that way, it is that way. So you need to make sure people know why they're going to listen to you. The problem and solution. So essentially, easy problems solve themselves. We need to be able to identify a complex and nuanced problem. We need to talk about it as a complex and nuanced problem. We want to talk about how this problem affects people financially, emotionally, how it affects their time, their health. We want to understand, the complexity of this. Problems worth solving tend to be three-part problems. So there's always kind of like three conflicting things that are adding up to something bigger, or there's three nasty elements to the problem. We want to be able to describe why this three-part problem exists. Then we want to be able to talk about the solution, and the solution should be so elegant that it covers at least those three major issues, so that we're talking about, this is the problem, this adds to the problem, this adds to the problem, but here's our solution, fixes that, fixes that, fixes that. So hand-shaped problem, hand-shaped solution. That's an elegant problem and solution fit. And any proof that it's a good fit would also go in here. The next one is the why. And this is essentially answering the question, why are you working on this? Why do you care so much? And why will you continue to care for many months or many years into the future? Why should I, now that I understand the problem and solution, why do you care about this? A great thing to put in here is what I call origin, mission, and vision. So origin, mission, vision is like your origin story, your background, what led you to have these insights. Your mission is like your passion, your purpose, all of that goes into the mission. Or your vision is what it is you want to see in the future as a result of being part of this. So Elon Musk often talks about becoming a multiplanetary species. He talks about accelerating the transformation towards sustainable energy. So that is a vision-based story. So essentially, we need a good origin story, a good mission story, a good vision story to go in here in the why. Opportunity is, what is the opportunity for the person listening? So now that I've given you the lay of the land, this is all about the problem, what's going on out there, the solution that we can offer, why we're interested in this. What is the opportunity for me as the listener? Do you want money, and what would be the return? Do you want me to mail out my database, and why would I do that? Do you want me to join your company, quit my job and work for you? Why would I do that? What's the opportunity? So this is where we talk about the proposal. What do you want me to do? What the honeymoon, what would be my initial experience of doing that? What would happen short term? And then the wedding, what would it look like long term? So proposal, honeymoon, and wedding is a good kind of like little framework for opportunity. And then next steps. So if we want to do this, what would be the specific next steps that would maintain momentum? And then the essence is ending the meeting on a high point, ending the meeting on the actual deeper essence of what it is that we're working on together. So making sure that we end on the right feelings and make sure we end on the right memories or reputation. So essentially, this all adds up to clarity, authority, problem, solution, the why, opportunity, next steps, the essence, or the capstone pitch. And this is a great way to present. It's a great way to conduct meetings, have conversations. Going into any meeting or conversation, this would be a great framework for you to visit before you do that. So that is our scheduled pitch. Any questions on the scheduled pitch? Please hit me up in the Q&A. Let me know your feedback. Is this landing for you? Are you learning something? And that would be great to just get some feedback in the chat. It's a pretty one-sided conversation from my point of view. Normally I'd kind of have a bit more live interaction, but that's cool. Just as long as you give me a little bit of chat energy, that would be really cool. Okay, so our final pitch that I want to talk about is the sales pitch. Now, this is the one a lot of people shy away from. I would say in many cases, businesses fail because the founder or the key people in that business are afraid of sales pitching. Sales pitching is selling the product, and it's selling the product to a customer. So a lot of entrepreneurs really love the idea of raising capital or doing a strategic joint venture partnership and those kind of big glamorous pitches. The less glamorous one is selling stuff to customers. And it's probably one of the most important pitches that you ever do. I don't care. Even if you're selling a $9 a month subscription, get on the phone and talk to customers. Find out why they want the thing, why they don't want the thing. Ask lots of nosy questions. Present the value of the product with its features, advantages, and benefits, and then ask the horrible question, would you like to get started? Would you like me to sign you up to that? You need to ask that horrible question and then pause. So do you want to go ahead? Right. And then when they go, I need time to think about it, you need to ask horrible, difficult sales questions like, out of curiosity, what is it you need to think about? I'm an entrepreneur trying to create a product that fits with the market. Could you, without pushing you to make a sale, I'd just love to know, is there anything in particular that this product could improve on that would make you go, I need this right this minute? So you want to ask those kind of questions. Now, this sucks. It really sucks. Most people I come across hate doing the sales stuff. I call it ABS breaking, anything but sales. And yet the best insights come from sales meetings. If ever you get the opportunity to do back-to-back sales meetings where you do 7, 8, 9, 10 sales meetings in a day, that can be one of the most powerful days of insights that you'll ever have. People tell you all sorts of stuff. Gee, I wish it came in blue. It's only in purple and red. It's like, I really wanted it in blue. Okay, great. We better get on to blue. I've heard that 3 times in a row. People say, it's just too expensive. We've got a budget to do this for, £1,200, but not £1,500. Okay, better figure out how to make it £1,200. I wish that it all worked within 3 months, but you're offering it as a 6-month service. Okay, better make sure that we can deliver it in 3 months. So you really, objections are just gold. You're looking for critics. You're looking for people to shoot you down. And that is free consulting. When someone tells you why they're not going to buy, that's free consulting. So you need to get into the sales pitch. You've got to develop a sales presentation. Here's my sales presentation. Just I won't go through all of it, but this is how I sell stuff, and this is how we train our sales team. So we frame the sale. So pre-framing the sale, we build rapport. We present. We look at their present situation. We look at the prize that they want to achieve and the problem that they're facing that prevents them from getting their prize. We share valuable insights. We share our methodology for solving this, and we share our packaged up solution and the price. Then we discuss it, and then we complete the sale. And we've got our little mud map here. We pre-frame our objections early. We seek permission to advance into the sales conversation. We document and store information meticulously. So this is the poster that I have up on the wall, or that I send out to our remote working team now. And we train our whole sales team on this poster. Now, the thing about this, and yours might look different to this, but the thing about this is that no one in the company thinks that I can't sell, right? So I come across a lot of people who work for someone who they know can't sell. And when a good salesperson works for a founder or a CEO or an engineer or an entrepreneur who can't sell, that salesperson, if they're any good, they figure out pretty quickly that they can increase their commissions, they can get bonuses, they can pretty much negotiate anything that they want. And very rapidly, the money moves to the sales team because they absolutely know that they've got the entrepreneur or the founder or the CTO over a barrel, that person cannot make sales without a sales team, that there is no, that they control the sale. And when someone else controls the sale, that's a very big weakness in business. So I hate to say it, but entrepreneurs have to be good at selling their own product. You've got to be your top salesperson, so that you can identify top salespeople, that you can train top salespeople, that you're never sitting there in fear that a salesperson would leave and you wouldn't be able to make sales. So for all of those reasons, you've got to perfect that sales pitch. You've got to have a good sales pitch ready to go. So finishing up, my belief is that the entrepreneur journey is the journey of 1,000 pitches. I believe that, when you see someone who gets a really big exit and sells their company for a lot of money, you can know guaranteed they've done thousands of pitches. They pitched for that first person to quit their job and come and join the team. They pitched for those investors. They probably had 30 angel investors who came on board, or VCs and seed and all that sort of stuff. They would have done lots of pitching then. They've probably done hundreds of customer pitches, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So they've constantly been enrolling people. Pitching is just the idea that you're enrolling people into new thinking and new behavior. You're changing the way that people think and behave by the words that you use. One inspiring story that I love that kind of echoes the entrepreneur journey is Martin Luther King Jr. When he gave the I Have a Dream speech. Most people don't realize, but it was about the 1,000th time he'd given the I Have a Dream speech. He'd traveled across all of America speaking for 3 or 4 years straight at church groups. And every single church group, he would give the I Have a Dream speech, and that snowballed and snowballed and snowballed. And that's how he got to Washington. And that's how he gave the I Have a Dream speech on that day. And it's very much like entrepreneurs. You hear entrepreneurs who are very polished and they've got a great business and they've got a big exit. You know that came to them through thousands of pitches. So the journey of a successful entrepreneur is often the journey of 1,000 great pitches or 1,000 pitches. So I'll just open up for questions on any of that. I hope that's been useful and helpful. Feel free to put as many questions as you like in there. I'm going to stop sharing my screen so I can have a look at the questions. We'll see how we go.
Excellent. Do you want me to go through the questions, Daniel?
Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah, great. So obviously that's wrapped up your kind of talk aspect of it. So thank you so much for that. We've had some great feedback in the chat function. So yeah, we'll move on to the questions. So first off, just probably a logistical one. John's asked if you're willing to share the slides afterwards.
I'm not sure how I would even do that.
Well, I guess I've popped your LinkedIn profile in the chat function. So if anyone wants to connect with you there, I guess.
Yeah. If you also do a YouTube search like Daniel Priestley pitching, there's a lot of this content is in video form and all of that sort of stuff. But I'm not set up to do it. But if I can find a way to do it, and I'll let you know, John.
Excellent. Well, I mean, if you want to send them our way, and we can distribute to the attendees as well.
I'm happy for this recording to be shared as well.
Yeah,
I think
absolutely.
Actually this recording is on live stream somewhere, isn't it?
Yeah. So we're live streaming across the Great British Entrepreneur Awards, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn.
Right. So there's a replay
there as well. Okay. So. Richard asks, I think he's referring to the engagement pitch. Could you describe the bottom part? Sorry, could you describe the part at the bottom center of the engagement pitch?
Let's have a look. Here. Oh, the window of opening is, are people actually in a position to listen? So we talk about people are open to receiving a pitch if it's the right time, the right place, if it's a referral from someone they trust, if you have rapport with them, and if it seems to be relevant to something they're already working on or already interested in. So we call that the window of opening, the window of listening. Some people say, I didn't even feel like the person was listening to me. So we kind of just have a look at evaluating this as to why weren't they listening? And was there something you could control based upon opening that window of listening? And we talk about some of these pitching mistakes of, being too needy, not rehearsing enough, confusing people with jargon or spin, not following a good formula, not practicing, waiting until your pitch is perfect before you get out there with a real person. So we just kind of cover some of those pitching mistakes in there, just as a way of kind of nudging people to get it done. Hopefully that's what you're talking about.
Yeah, excellent. I think Richard's just put into the chat. That's very useful. Thank you. You might want to stay on that slide just for a little bit longer, Daniel.
Yep.
The next question comes from Kate, who says, in the engagement part of the pitching process, in a scheduled pitch, is there a certain time frame which a normal person can listen for and remain engaged? For example, make sure that your capstone pitch doesn't exceed 3 minutes.
So it tends to be that a 5 to 15 minute presentation is high impact. A 60-minute conversation is fairly normal, and that's a normal scheduled time that people will talk to you. The preparation is still the same, that you go into that meeting knowing your points of clarity, authority, the problem, the solution, the why, the opportunity, next steps, and the essence. But you then abandon the presentation mode and you just talk it through. You just have a conversation, making sure that you're hitting on those bases. So the more, it's kind of like in martial arts. If you've ever studied something like karate, you learn these things called katas, where you do these moves over and over and over again, and it might be 8 to 10 moves, and you just practice them over and over. And you would never actually do the 8 to 10 moves in a row in a sparring situation. But learning those 8 to 10 moves means that you are actually practicing the moves. So when you rehearse and rehearse and rehearse a presentation, you can then actually have just a powerful conversation where it's a free-flowing conversation that just happens to hit on all the major points that you get through. So I always recommend that people rehearse this as a presentation where they deliver a 5 to 15 minute presentation on Capstone, and then totally abandon it in a conversation mode, just knowing that you will move your way through these powerful points.
Excellent. Thank you very much. So the next one comes from, and I hope I pronounced this correctly, I'm sorry if I don't, but Tushar, who asks, how did you get better at that pause after the ask? Did you ever find it awkward, or were you a natural?
No, I find all of this stuff awkward, which is why I've created posters and methods for doing it. If I felt like a natural, I would never have come up with this stuff. So the thing I would say is, with all of this, you need to learn how to do something called role play. Role play is either role playing with a familiar person or another entrepreneur, so that you're practicing your delivery, or you do it with a recorder and you listen to it back, voice recorder, or you do it with a video and you watch it back. And essentially you're practicing and rehearsing in the same way footballers rehearse and musicians rehearse, and even medical professionals rehearse in safe environments. You want to create an opportunity for you to rehearse in a safe environment, do what's called role play. It sounds so cheesy and naff to be role playing, but realistically, every high performance role, from the military to musicians to actors, all high performance roles do role play and rehearsal. So, that's one of the key things to do this right.
Brilliant, thank you. And probably answered quite a bit of it there, but there is another question from a doctor, actually, funnily enough. And so there might be a little bit of expansion there. But so Jacqueline says, hi, I'm Jacqueline from Health Bubble, a health and wellness directory. As a doctor, I find the sales pitch really challenging, as I'm more used to saving lives. It's obviously very, very noble. What advice do you have to get over this?
Well, the first thing I would say is that my intuition would tell me that you're starting a business in the health and medical space if you're a doctor. So your pitch will save lives, because what you're doing is you're taking your intellectual property and putting it into a scalable format. So what you're trying to do is scale your impact. So if what you do at a low level of scale is save lives, then essentially your business, if it takes off, will save a lot of lives as well. So in the same way a doctor prepares, rehearses, you probably spent a lot of time in medical school doing safe operations on people who were already dead and all of that sort of stuff. And essentially you're doing practice and rehearsal. You're getting peer review, in a scientific kind of way of doing things. So you wouldn't expect to be able to just walk onto a operating theater and start, doing a great job of surgery. So just don't expect the same thing from pitching. you're going to have to rehearse. You're going to have to do some role play. You're going to have to do some, video and watch it back, and audio and watch it back. Just know that nobody's great at this. You take someone like a great actor, like let's say Mel Gibson in the movie Braveheart, right? So there's a pitch that he has to give called the Sons of Scotland pitch, where people are walking off the battlefield and he has to convince them in a few sentences that they have to turn around and come with him onto the battlefield. And it needs to be a convincing part of the movie. So he would have written the pitch, he would have written the script, he would have rehearsed it many, many times. He would have done at least 20 to 30 takes. Then they would have edited it and polished it up. And that's how they create a convincing scene in a movie where people actually, believe in the idea that the character could convince people to come, and run onto the battlefield. And it's the same process for an entrepreneur. You script it, you rehearse it, you edit it, you do it over and over again, and then it becomes more and more convincing. So just, even at the level of a top Hollywood actor who gets millions of dollars per film, they don't avoid that process. They don't walk on set one day and deliver an amazing set of lines that they just came up with off the top of their head. They go through a whole process to be able to, deliver a convincing presentation. So it's the same for entrepreneurs. Go through the process. Don't think that there's some natural person out there who's just naturally doing it. Go through the process like you did with medicine, learning it, improving it, crafting it, honing it. And here's the other thing. If you're a doctor and you're about to put someone into a vulnerable position, they want to hear clarity. What are we doing? Authority. Why can I trust you? Problem. What's the problem that we're addressing? Solution. Why do you think this is the absolute best solution for this particular issue that I've got? Right. So a lot of the first ones, clarity, authority, problem, solution, those are that's what's called good bedside manner, right? People love doctors who go through and give them clarity, credibility, and authority, clearly articulate the problem, clearly articulate the solution. So this is something you should feel actually potentially comes quite natural to you in the bedside manner department as well. So, perhaps it's the same format. I hope that helps.
Yeah, wonderfully detailed and insightful answer there. Jacqueline's just said really great advice, and thank you for that. So just before we wrap up and end today's session, Daniel, if you wanted the attendees to take away 3 key pieces of advice, what would they be?
So the first piece of advice would be you get what you pitch for. You're always pitching. An entrepreneur's job is to pitch something into existence. If you already had all of the resources that you need, you wouldn't be an entrepreneur, you'd be an asset manager. So essentially, or you might be a leader of an organization. If you're an entrepreneur, by definition, you don't have all the resources. You're lacking resources, you're lacking access to market, you're lacking consumer awareness of your product. So the cornerstone skill of entrepreneurship is pitching for the thing that you're missing. You have to pitch for consumer awareness. You have to pitch for the team member to quit their job and come and work with you. You've got to pitch for someone to allocate capital to the project. So the cornerstone is the pitching skills, and keep in mind that you can't turn off the pitching thing when you're an entrepreneur. So if you have a quiet chat with your team over some drinks and you say, I'm really struggling with imposter syndrome here, and I'm really feeling like I'm not confident and I'm not sure this is going to work out, you're pitching and enrolling people into that vision, the vision of, I'm not sure it's going to work out. I hate to say it, and it sucks. Wouldn't it be nice if we could be authentic all the time and just tell people how we are? The truth is, there's a small group of people, as an entrepreneur, there's a small group of people you can be totally authentic with and share your vulnerabilities. But in most cases, people are looking for you to lead the way with how we're pitching this. We're pitching it into existence. We have to keep coming back to our points of value. We have to keep coming back to the opportunity, the points of clarity and credibility. And we've got to enroll people. We've got to enroll them into new ways of thinking and behaving that they weren't currently thinking and behaving. And that's kind of the cornerstone skill. After you've sold the company for $1 billion, you can then get all vulnerable and share how scared you were at times. But ultimately, you've got to keep pitching the business into existence. So you get what you pitch for, and you're always pitching. The second thing I'd say is radical empathy. Really empathize with people. Like, try to understand what's going on in the mind of the customer, what's going on in the mind of the investor, what's going on in the mind of that talented, amazing person who you want to join the team, and really try and understand what is their world like. So great pitching is not about forcing ideas onto people either. It's also radical empathy and understanding what's going on in the mind of someone else, and then helping them to understand how they can get what they want. All the things that they've dreamed of and all of the pains that they want removed, this is something that will help towards that. So practicing radical empathy. Third one would be embracing the critics. So embracing the critics is essentially when someone gives you criticism, immediately reframe that as free consulting. And if someone says, I wouldn't buy your product because it's not in purple and I really would want it in purple, great, thanks for the free consulting. I'll get back to you when it's in purple. Or, that will never work because people will never do that behavior. Interesting. Why do you think people would never do that behavior? Okay, thank you very much for the free consulting. Cool. So you don't argue with people, don't ignore people. I see someone who says, I've seen a lot of people who say, just ignore the haters, ignore the critics. It's like, don't ignore these people. They're giving you free McKinsey consulting. So jump all over that, absorb it, process it, think it through. If you get a negative review, really make it as a positive talking point with your team. What do you think we can learn from this particular review? Other than this person's a little bit pedantic or whatever, whatever we want to call them. But, beyond that, what could we learn from this? So embrace the critics as free consultants would be the third thing I'd say.
Excellent. Thank you very much. I'm afraid that's all we've got time for today. So on behalf of the Great British Entrepreneur Awards, Salesforce, and all our attendees, thank you so much, Daniel, for taking the time to be with us and sharing your knowledge and your expertise. The next episode of the How To Academy is at the same time next Wednesday on the basics of CRM for small businesses, and we hope to see you there. So thank you again for joining us. Thank you, Daniel, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.